why drawing management? Help us understand the key drivers for change for each of your organizations. Is this driven by compliance concerns, safety, efficiency, or other? Who would like to kick us off?
I can throw something out right away and just highlight sort of a real world situation that sort of underscores why we ended up with drawing management. And that was that we had these disparate groups working in two different states, not necessarily that much together, but just to get sort of a document around how to name a file that is a drawing, so that within that name you had about all the information that you could possibly hope to get in a file name extension. We had about a 13 or 14 page how-to document that explained to new engineers, when you create a new file, this is how you have to specifically name it so that somebody even has a chance of finding it. And looking at, you know, the difficulty in that transmission engineering group having that document and other groups having nothing like that, we didn't even have a consistency amongst naming conventions. Therefore, just the notion of trying to locate a drawing was a pretty daunting notion, and usually required that you knew the person who knew somebody who probably knew where that drawing might be. So that's just one kind of real world driver. One of the most obvious ones that was going on about the time we decided to evaluate drawing management systems.
Super. Thank you, Blake. Paul or Bernie, you want to add your side of the story? Go ahead.
Yeah, for Eversource, it was predominantly driven by an increase in our capital project work. You know, following changes to NERC and FERC reliability criteria, there was a huge effort to perform upgrades to our transmission system, and with that, on top of our normal asset conditions based work, you had a dramatic increase in the amount of work that was being done to revise our substation drawings. And at the time, you know, each of our legacy operating companies had slightly different methods, but basically was managed on just a regular file server system with different practices and rules and how these revisions would be managed. But as you have multiple jobs going on, and eventually you're going to have multiple jobs going on at the same substation, sharing the same drawings. So being able to implement a method of document control that we would have a single file library type system where we knew who had what drawing and when was critical. Kept our schedules on track. It kept our documents from losing content, and it helped us prevent multiple change orders, either with engineering vendors, with construction contractors. But really, it was when you have multiple people working on the same drawing at once, it can set you up for a lot of issues.
Great, thank you, Paul. Go ahead, Bernie.
Yeah, I think just to mimic what both Paul and Blake said. For us, we had, as mentioned before, we had everything just stored in local files in the network. When it was just a couple people in the design department, doing design work, it wasn't too bad. But then as we started adding more people and started doing more work concurrently with other stuff, we found ourselves potentially, people we had one location, people would copy something out into their own little work area on their own hard drive or something, work on it and copy it back in. When you have two people trying to work on the same file, you have suddenly two different files, the same version number. They get printed out. The field guys get two different copies of the same version number. That's its own problem. But then you have stuff getting overwritten. We had a couple incidents where someone accidentally deleted everything on the network, just drug it off into some other different folder, didn't know where it landed. So we needed something, basically a cop, if you will, to police all those files, what was happening. Now, when we were looking into a drawing management system, one of those things that you don't know was asked of us of, how many duplicates do you have? And, oh, we don't know. Come to find out, doing some investigation, we found 30% of our files were all duplicates. Whether they had the same file name, just probably in a slightly different folder, could have been a different version number, could not have been. So it's kind of eye-opening for us to figure out that our system was in a pretty big disarray, and we were able to sort of step in and clean it up and put a cop on top of it to make sure that it doesn't happen again. That there is one drawing, that's the most recent copy, and that's the copy that gets put out to our field guys.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, we hear that so frequently. The duplicate feeds. Nobody expects to find what they find when we start to dig into it a little bit. So thank you guys for sharing that.